results on that. My background actually came from a mathematical modeling. I was modeling pollutants in the atmosphere, in the environment, what happened to them and such. So actually ended up being kind of useful. We model power and how much power is going to be produced on a certain roof. So it's this angle and facing this, this, direction and that kind of thing. And our systems always overproduce. We have yet to have a system that underproduces from what our estimate is, which is the way we like it, because happier customers are better. This is an example of the lease system, of a leased system. This is what they're paying now. And this is that's their Westar bill. This is their new Westar bill, and this is their solar lease. And so their total costs are quite a bit lower than what they were paying before, and they're really getting they're getting 100% of their power covered. It doesn't work like that. They're actually overproducing in certain months. This is a customer who wanted that. They don't mind. They're actually giving away a certain amount. They're not getting a very high value when they're overproducing after a month. We have a full month to use any power that we generate on that roof. After that month, if you're running in credit, they give you, they do reimburse you, but it's not at that full rate. They're still, even when we factor that in, that giving away, they wanted to get to 100%, and they were willing to go ahead and sacrifice some of the economics of this in order to hit that 100%, which was their environmental goal. So it's one of the things that we do. We like to figure out what they want, and we show them each way. And this is an example here. You can see. So this is what their conventional power. The yellow line, the big line, they didn't put any solar in at all. That's about what we would expect their power bills to do, which is kind of phenomenal in 25 years. What you're going to be paying for power. The blue line is a lease. The lease drops off, and then you're saving. All that is yours. Essentially, anything in that yellow is savings. So in that case, so it's kind of interesting. I do kind of geek out a little bit on the production and the math, but because that's so important when you're making a decision. This isn't a decision that's related to it's a major purchase. We have to be very, very careful. This was an example of a business, so a purchase. This is their energy use. I can tell you right now that they've got electric heat because they're using more power in January and December. It's sort of a reverse curve of the production, which means that they're leaving a little bit on the table. It's not ideal, but again, they're achieving their environmental goals here. On that one, we could put in a smaller system that would not ever overproduce for the month, and we figure out what we want to do there. But on this one, it pays for itself in the 6th year. On this one, this is a commercial, so they get that depreciation. So you can see here, tax credit. You can't read these numbers, I'm sure. $34,000, tax credit of $10,300. The depreciation savings is around $12,000. That means that first year, that $34,000 system, they have covered everything but $10,000 on it. So from then on, it's just energy savings will cover the rest of that, and in 6 years, they'll take care of that.
If a person runs a business out of their home,
a home business, yeah, is an interesting one, because normally, and we work with accountants on this. Actually, I love it when people have some doubts. I'm like, send this to your accountant, because the accountants take a look at it, and they always think that it's a great idea. There's usually a certain percentage of your home that you're writing off. That amount is often what we can deduct. Although there's some cases where it's like we can make a case. We've got we have a lot of systems out in the country that someone may have a small business selling meat or eggs or whatever. We're able to okay, all of this power is for that operation, kind of thing, and make a case for it. So it varies. But if you're using a home office, something like that, home office is 10%, and often 10% of it is written off like a business and 90% like a home, and that's how it's treated often.
If you have to buy a new furnace and you have solar, should you look at only certain kinds of furnaces, or doesn't it matter what kind of furnace you have?
You know, as far as different appliances, and I get the same question, hot water, air conditioning, whatever, I always recommend someone to yeah, I mean, it will make some amount of difference, and you want to take a look at your overall goals. It's you have a certain amount of solar, and maybe, you know, I have people who oversize their solar array because they're getting an electric car, that kind of thing. I mean, we just take a look at the whole thing in its entirety, or maybe we max out your roof and we got, you know, we can cover 70% of your bills. Sometimes we'll work on that 30%. You know, maybe it's a more efficient air conditioner, maybe it's you know, going through and changing light bulbs and things like that, and we try to do it. Interestingly enough, we find just installing a solar array, people become more conscious of their electricity because they're saving it. And I mean, I found that in my own home. I installed solar 6-7 years ago on my home, and I want to hit that 0 mark so bad, you know, so I'm going around turning the lights off after my kid and things like that. So that does happen. There's a little bit of a bonus you get just because you're thinking about this. Oh, just a plug. We're doing a fundraiser with the Sierra Club, and actually we're their exclusive solar vendor. We had to be vetted through their national organization, and actually that was an amazingly complicated process. That's you know, it's a wonderful group. They've got about 1 million lawyers over there, so it took about a year to get this thing done. It's like, we're trying to give you money, and it took a year. It's like, I can't imagine if we were trying to take money from them, how long it would have taken. But we have a deal with them, and we're giving, actually they're very much advocates and very strong in the state of Kansas. And you know, they got a real name for themselves actually amongst the national Sierra Club because of what they did you know, with the coal power plant. They got some real credibility out there. So anyway, they've helped us fight attacks against solar in the state of Kansas, and so we're helping them out too. So we've got a fundraiser going with them, and we're giving up to $500 a system, and we've done. The last couple of months, we've gotten about 15 of them out, so we're going to have a nice check for them at the end of the year. So it's not just for members, although, you know, that's kind of the way it's written, but it's actually anybody who's sympathetic to that. So just some pretty drone pictures of solar panels on roofs, and go ahead, one more drone picture here. And just about timed that perfect. We had some questions, but we've got some time for some more.
Is there any way to monitor what's going on, usage and?
There is the question is monitoring, and yeah, we do have a couple of different methods of monitoring the system, which can be quite fun. You can there's web-based programs that we hook it up, and you can see. I won't say real time. It's sort of supposed to be real time, but it's usually lagging a little bit. But you can see what your system did today and yesterday, and cumulatively, you know, how many pounds of carbon dioxide have been offset, that sort of thing. It's really there's really a lot that can be done. We've done this sorts of things for years. That's one advantage that over the 15 years that we've been doing this, that's come a long way. Well, the internet's come a long way in 15 years. And that's a big part of it. It didn't used to be internet-based, and now it is. Yes?
When you finally own the system, it suggests that as you lease it, eventually you do own it. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. And that's something that's very different between the way we do it and the way Solar City does it, which Solar City never lets you own it. So,
when you eventually own the system, how much are you saving each month?
that obviously would depend on the size of system that you get. But remember, it's really kind of amazing when you buy something, its value goes down every year. It's not working as well. It doesn't function quite as it did when it was new. The thing with solar is the electricity that it's replacing is going up at such a rate that it actually saves you more money every year that you own it. And so it's actually going to save you somewhere like in 15 years, it'll be actually saving you double what it did the first year, which is amazing. It does produce a little bit less power each year, but it's only a tiny, tiny amount. It's about 0.6%. Panel degradation, we call it, but it's the inflation rate of energy is somewhere in that 5 to 10% range, and so it's actually saving quite a bit more every single month. It's pretty amazing.
Could you do it in this building?
It's interesting when we're talking about a nonprofit, we don't have the ability to lease in the same way to a nonprofit, and it's complicated IRS rules, but what we need is around 22% of the cost of the system down. Excuse me, and then we can lease it. But leases on nonprofit schools, government buildings, that kind of thing, the IRS will let us depreciate them, but not take the tax credit, which is unfortunate. It's super unfortunate.
But I mean, just physically, you could take care of it here, but it would probably be very expensive, right?
You could, yeah. I'm trying to think of the roof. Usually I have the roof in my mind. Flat roof is absolutely the #1 commercial install that we do. We do that. I mean, most commercial buildings are flat roofs. We've done hundreds of them. Yeah.
If you're going to install, for example, a 5 kilowatt system, how many of those panels would be required?
The number of panels. Yeah, you're right. They're around 250 watts a piece, so 4 panels is a kilowatt. It's hard for me to, and actually that number keeps changing. We used to install panels that were around 120 watts, the same size panel. Those panels are roughly 3 foot by 5 foot or so, each panel, so it's just not quite, but that's about as close as we can get.
That's a 7.5 water then, right there?
You're counting the panels faster than I am. Well, I totally would buy that looking at it, yeah. Yep, 1, 2, 3, yep. And that's a very typical, that is exactly our average system right there. That's out in West Lawrence.
For a typical residence?
Yes, that's what we are installing, largely is a system about that size.
7.5?
Yeah.
7.5 kilowatts.
7.5 kilowatts, and that's like nameplate. And 7.5 kilowatts will produce a certain amount of power, more in the summer, less in the winter, but we model that out and can figure out what it'll save. Yes?
There are some solar farms that generate electricity for utility companies.
Yes.
Is that likely to spread?
Solar farms are becoming very popular in that it's not that expensive anymore to do it, and so it is going to become more and more popular as long as the cost of conventional electricity continues to climb. We're going to see more and more of those, particularly in those areas of the country that have a little bit more sunlight than we have here and a little higher electric rates and power. It really has to do a lot with the wholesale price of power, wherever that might be. But we're getting to that point, even in Kansas, where it could make sense in some areas. Our laws are a little tough on some of that here, but we're working on that as well.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We appreciate your being here.
Thank you. Thank you.